Hey there, class. It's me again. I wanted to follow up on that video that I did about the 5 forces, because if you remember from our Zoom meeting yesterday, when you're doing an industry analysis, you're doing not just the 5 forces, you're doing a 5 forces and you're doing a value chain analysis. Okay, both are very important. Once you understand what the 5 forces is telling you as far as the potential profitability of an industry, that's the time, if you are actually a competitor in that industry, to start looking at your value chain to see where you can cut costs in order to help you attain a competitive advantage, or you want to change your value chain in some significant way so that you can compete more effectively with your industry rivals. Okay? So for those of you that may not have seen the value chain yet, you should have, but if you didn't, this is our value chain. Okay? The big arrow. Over to the right here, we have inputs. The very next thing we have is production or manufacturing. Then we have outputs. Then we have sales. And finally, down here at this end, we have service. Okay? And then above this chain, but part of it, you have administration, accounting, HR, all of the services that go into supporting the business, but are not directly related to actually making the product. They sort of set the stage financially or in terms of staffing and that sort of thing. And so this is the basic value chain. Now, it's very easy to say inputs. Okay? Inputs, they're massive. There are just so many things, and you don't even think about them, but there's so many things that go into creating any product that you sell. So for instance, let's say that you are in the I am writing a song that I want to sell business. So what are some of your inputs that you have in order to get to this next stage where you actually are producing the product? Well, you've got, you need instruments. You need a composer. You need perhaps a studio in which to practice. You need technology in order to record and mix your song down. You may need an agent that's going to help you develop your song, or you may have a producer. You may have an assistant that does paperwork for you. You may have to borrow money, which means that you have a bank or some kind of institution that is furnishing you loans or money. But before you know it, you're thinking, well, I'm just going to do a very simple song, and it's going to be very easy, and I'm going to do it myself. But if you really look at the potential inputs for something as simple as just writing a song, you might have 50 or 100 of them. And each one of those inputs carries with it a cost. Okay? In the production end of things, let's continue with the example of, I am writing a song business. So in the production side, you need a recording studio. You need a recording engineer. You need microphones. You need any number of things that are going to make it possible for you to take all of your inputs and turn them into the song that you want to sell. Okay? So once you go through that process with those two sections of the value chain, then you have your output. In this case, your output is a song. It may be many different versions of the song. It may be just one version. It may be a version, though, that is tailored differently for different media. Maybe you have a different mix for iPhone or iPad or a theatrical environment. whatever. But those elements, you created them here, and those are now your outputs. Then you have sales. So maybe you have to have a salesperson, an agent, somebody to take your song to all of the people that can potentially buy it. You might want to buy some advertising. You might have to, buy advertising on radio. You may have to do print ads. You may have to go to a printer and do flyers. You may have to put up a nice website so that people will find you. All of these things go into the box of sales. And then service would, in the case of a song, it may not be so pertinent, but service might be something as simple as, hey, let us come out and perform your song, our song for you. We'll perform it for free if we can maybe get a percentage of the door of the venue. But just follow up. I mean, if it was a manufactured product like an automobile or something like that, service is obvious. But in the case of this example we're using, maybe it's not quite so obvious. And then up top here, well, you may be doing multiple jobs, wearing multiple hats. It doesn't change the fact that somebody is going to have to do the administration, which means you're going to have to keep track of the time and the money that's spent in order to accomplish your goal of having this song produced. And so with the example we're using, this support area up here is going to be kind of light, but it's not non-existent. All of those functions have to get done by somebody. And so that's the basic value chain. And so where it gets interesting when you're doing a value chain analysis is you have to do the analysis of the value chain of your competitors as well. Because the most important thing to remember is that your value chain cannot be identical to that of your competitors. Otherwise, customers do not have any way to differentiate you and decide to use your organization instead of your competitor. Now, in this case, this example I used about I'm going to write a song incorporated, it doesn't really pertain in that case, but other examples would. So, for instance, if you're going to develop a platform to deliver music or anything else, movies, music, anything, what is it about your platform through your value chain that's going to be different than the value chain of your competitors? Now, I'll give you a personal story about my business, and maybe that will illustrate what I'm talking about. Back in the 80s and 90s, I ran a company called Echo Sound Services. And if I've told you the story before, you can stop listening now. But we were a little editorial company. We had 15 editors, sometimes 20, sometimes 10, depending on how busy we were. But we were in the editing business. And so our product was the many tracks of sound effects and dialogue that we delivered to the mix stage. And that's what we were getting paid for. And so one day, let me go on to say that there were dozens of little editing companies that did exactly the same thing. The producer would give us their film, give us their notes. We would go into our little rooms, we would cut sound effects, we would cut dialogue, we would do ADR, and we would take it to the dub stage where another entity, a mixing company, would mix it. We would stand by to make fixes, but what we did was really finished at that point. So one day a client called me up and said, when I go out and I do a sound bid, I get a bid from you for editing, and then I get a bid from Todd A.O., that was one of my competitors, for mixing, but they also do editing. And so they give me a big number, and I have to ask them to get rid of the editing because I'm going to do the editing with you, but it makes it very confusing. Is there any way that you can that I can just do the whole package with you, and then you go to Tadeo and you buy the services that we would have to buy from them? Is there any way that you can do that? And I thought about it, and I thought, well, why not? Why not? That's makes it very easy for the client. But more than that, it would put us in complete control of the job, not just the way it was finished, but where it was finished. And so we started down that path, and we started to do complete packages. And initially, our bids, our complete package bids, were less using Tadeo than Tadeo's bids were using Tadeo. We were around 55, they were around 65, or if we were at 60, they were at 70. They were usually about $10,000 more. And those became the most profitable years of our company's existence. And looking back on it, you know, I say, well, why? Why did that happen? And sure enough, the reason that it happened is because by making that one change in the way we did business, suddenly our value chain was completely different than our competitors. Our competitors were editing companies. So their value chain involved editors, sound libraries, cutting rooms, and delivering to the stage. Our value chain involved actually creating the final element that was delivered to the network. Well, all of a sudden, we're a completely different company because without even realizing it, we changed our value chain and we went into a completely different business. We went into the sound business as opposed to the sound editing business, which is a subset of the sound business. And with that one change, we set out on probably the best 10 or 15 years of our company's history. Our revenues went from $3 million up to $14 million. And it was all because we had latched on to that one component that made all of the difference for the clients. And we did just about every television movie that was produced at that time. In those days, they were producing, the networks, they were producing 130 TV movies. We did 70 or 75 of them. We did more than half. So that was our core business. So value chain analysis. Number one, you do it to keep your costs down. From everything from the building that you rent, to the secretary at the front, to the electricity, to the office space, to the staffing, to the raw materials that you purchase, everything has a cost. And you have to do your analysis to confirm or make sure that you're not suffering from what we call cost creep. You want to make sure that you're getting each of those elements at the best possible cost. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you have to do value chain analysis of your company and of your competitors. You don't have to do every competitor. There are probably 2 or 3 that are just driving you crazy, and the rest of them, you don't even know they're out there. But the 2 or 3, you need to dig into their businesses the best way that you can. And of course, the best way that you can, unless you're going to hire a company who's going to do it for you, is to remain in contact with people that work at these companies, and they'll feed you data. They'll feed you little tidbits of information that you then can incorporate and say, oh, okay, I understand that component of their value chain, and I'm going to do it differently. Okay? One of the things that comes up between our company today and a company like Formosa, for instance, is there was a client I was talking to. He said, I did that one show at Formosa. I still think about those wonderful cupcakes that they served in the morning. Okay, doesn't sound like much, but what that told me is the client really responded to that client's service. So what do I want to do? I want to do something better than cupcakes. Okay, it's that simple. If they have big rooms, then I want to sell something that's a little bit different. A big room, you already know it's going to be overkill, it's going to be expensive. It means that they don't have a lot of flexibility on price. So our rooms are just a little bit smaller, and we even have some tiny environments, which clients prefer because we just don't charge a lot of overtime for them if they happen to go over. So some shows like Modern Family, for instance, for most of its run, it was in our smallest stage because they used to play back on the television, so they didn't really need a big room. Okay, so that's a point of difference, and so there are so many. There are so many between us and Formosa and us and some of our other competitors, and we strive for that. I still haven't come up with that silver bullet that I came up with when we started to do complete packages before we owned any facilities, but I'm looking for it. We currently have introduced video services, inexpensive video services to support our low budget clients. And that changes our value chain because most of the companies that we compete with, they don't have video services as part of their value chain. We do. So something like that is a game changer, for those lower budget projects. So keep thinking about that. Combine it with the 5 forces analysis when you are doing an analysis of the industry that you might want to participate in, and you'll come up with some answers and some insights that are going to be very, very valuable. And by valuable, I mean you're going to make a lot of money. Okay? So that's this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I tried to keep it short. You can ask further questions when we do one of our Zoom meetings. Okay? Bye-bye.